Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you, Hope, for being here again. Right on. And thank you, Pinup, for the bar service. These would be both panelist drinks as well as audience drinks for good, brief questions. So, lockpicking on the screen, much like any hacking on the screen, right? It's always super accurate. It blows you away, and you immediately launch into internet forums so you can register your extreme pleasure and satisfaction.
Yeah, you just stick any two things into a lock, right? And move them, and it magically opens.
Oh, yeah. Just
doesn't matter what lock, doesn't matter what two things, just any two things.
You don't even need two things sometimes.
Oh.
If you're really good at
That's for the experts.
Just one thing.
So the thing about portraying lockpicking in general, lockpicking is really fun. First of all, who enjoys lockpicking, right? Like, yeah, good. That's why and we do. Like, lockpicking is a hoot, but it's actually not very visual. We have all kind of slides and animations and diagrams when we try to teach this stuff, because unless you're showing someone a clear see-through lock, it's really hard to convey what's going on inside the lock. So in fiction, a lot of times that, to portray in still photos or in film, you kind of have to cheat a little bit. Like, you can show the lock picker and maybe show their tools like outside the lock, or have their tools like about to go into the lock. But unless you have some sort of fake cutaway view, you can't really show what's happening in the lock. You often can't even show someone picking really accurately because, like, this is a cool action looking sequence here, but like, it's a totally staged photo. Like, it was for a magazine shoot that we were in.
With some douche at the door.
I know, right? And like, I'm not standing in front of the lock. I'm like way off to the side to do, whatever, we can tell this crowd. I love this line that you said, I don't even want to attribute it to you. Shooting lockpicking is a lot like filming adult entertainment, because the positions of a body are the most unrealistic thing, so you can actually see where something's going in. Like, you have to be like, I'm picking the lock. Like, no one uses that angle. So picking often takes a back seat to just showing like action happening, right? And there's kind of two ways that films do that. There's a good corollary with guns, right? You can have like a popcorn action movie like John Woo films with like clicky guns happening all the time. Or you can show...
I love clicky guns,
of course.
yes.
Or like a realistic film with fallible characters under stress and intense situations with their firearms. Like, lockpicking is the same way. And
Steve has some opinions about the quality of films.
Yes, I do. And the quality of guns in films, too. Talk about guns later with me, and I'll talk all day long. But for talking about lockpicking, who wants to lead us off with this great Survive Style 5+? The quite the clicky gun style of like nothing realistic at all about this, right?
I think I remember this one. This is pretty funny. So I think what we're about to see, I don't actually think I've ever seen the movie, but I've seen this clip. He's gonna walk up and with a jackknife, lockpick set, which is this little set of lockpicks that folds up and there's a tension wrench on it.
Do you remember the brand? Can you tell?
I don't remember.
It looks like an early Southward set.
Probably.
It does look like that. Very similar to the one that I think is on sale downstairs in the vendor area.
All right. From like, yeah. Well, anyway, you'll see if this is an example of good or bad. Let's see.
Oh, that's the Southern set. That's not the one they sell.
But wait, there's more.
Okay, let's go.
There's no need to turn the plug, by the way.
Not at all.
Just move the pick up and down, and it opens.
You just sort of wiggle, and there's a click, and you're done.
I really like his expression. Can we see him again here, really quick? He's
very intense.
And it's really important that he look at what he's doing. Where's the turning tool?
So yeah,
they did a great job with that guy's character, just like what he's wearing and the hair and the face.
Yep, very covert.
Right, but of course you're not seeing anything like this. This is the lowest end of. They just want to throw in an element of like, it's like the computer hacker that just things swirl on the screen and the camera pans around their face looking a certain way, and then ooh, they broke the password. Great. So sometimes prop departments really love to get into it if they're going to show something close up, right? Like, how many times have we seen, do you just call it like the city rake or the sexiness of the city rake, right?
The S rake, is that what you're talking about?
The long
snake?
rake, the long jag.
No.
Oh, I don't think I've seen a lot of the city rake, but the S rake I feel like all the time.
All the time.
Both
Yeah.
of those really are pretty popular for that.
Right. Anything that looks more intricate and jaggedy, they're gonna.
It
be like,
looks
"Ooh,
complicated.
This looks good.
Therefore,
Looks like
it
they have
must
really
do something.
intense tools.
Wrong
So-
direction. Wrong tools.
Yeah.
The jagged part is supposed to go down away
Yeah.
from the
Away from the pins. So they learned somewhere that there's 2 tools involved. They're just not supposed to be 2 lockpicks.
So there's a number of like really common lockpicking fuck ups in film. The most common one is like, oh, they're not using a turning tool. That's the most obvious one. They're using either 1 pick tool or 2 pick tools and no turning tool. That's the big one. The other one is that you hear the bolt unlock without them actually turning the plug. And then even that's not quite so bad as the door that automatically unlocks and falls open without turning the plug.
Yeah.
So you'll see various forms of that throughout
So-
these clips.
I have to say, one of my favorite scenes that we don't have is Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, yeah.
That
He
is a good
uses
one.
2 lockpicks, and it's a mechanism to stop the actors or the characters while they have a conversation. So you see him take out 2 lockpicks, you see him put them into the keyway, and then he actually spends time on it. You can't see what he's doing because he's blocking them, but the characters are having another discussion and dialogue, and eventually you see him do something and it opens. And even though like I had to stop that movie and like rewind it 5 times and people were ready to strangle me with the remote, just to make sure like those are 2 locks and I think 2 picks and no turning tool and I think I know what brand they are. It did well for the movie. It did well for the movie. It got it along. It showed that it took some time and it took some skill on Eddie Murphy's character part. If only they'd used a turning tool instead of another lockpick.
But this comes to a really interesting point, right? It's very rare for a dedicated enough props department to actually gimmick up a lock that you can get that very satisfying for us, like plug turn moment. And we even had one example of this, right? Who first found this clip? Do you remember?
I don't know. While you're playing it, I'll see if
I
I
don't
can
know. It's a
find
great goddamn film.
Yeah,
Like,
who's seen
lockpicking
Inside
aside.
Man? Like, it's a really
So
we should see
fucking
more
good.
hands. It kind of was a sleeper at the theaters, but like it was a really good fucking movie.
It really was.
And in this scene, you'll see wrong picks, of course, because you need to look cool with the long rake picks in your lever lock. But they gimmicked up a cylinder so that they could actually show the turn.
Thankfully, the rest of the film by this point was good enough that like I was able to overlook this, which
But like
should
that's-
tell you
yeah.
how much I enjoyed the rest of the film. 'Cause
But
that was
as
pretty bad.
as I think Preston called it, the no cut, the no edit open moment is kind of really neat, and you don't see that often. And it's just because so many minutia details just are not in the consideration of people producing a lot of pictures. Like I'm certain there's got to be a lot of photographers out there who know everything about cameras, and if someone's using a camera, like oh well they didn't adjust their f-stop or they didn't actually. I don't know a lot about photography. Like maybe Lady Merlin screams at the screen a lot when she sees movies, but to get down into the nitty-gritty of every subculture that you represent is hard. So when we see that, we were pretty impressed, even though the props they were using were wrong. They did the hard work of building a door that they could actually swing and open the cylinder.
I see it with firearms a lot, especially after getting trained properly, and I'm like, why the hell is the guy walking around with his finger on the trigger?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no,
Yeah.
just take it off. That's it.
Or,
That's
or
all
just
you gotta
why
do.
does the gun click? It just
Yeah.
the guns are clicking all the time.
Yeah.
Like everything's right about to fall apart. It doesn't matter which kind it is. Like the guy's just holding a revolver and like he moves his wrist like half an inch and it's like click 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 click. Well, what did he do? What's going on? This-
20 shots later, he's got to reload.
Speaking of, there's a great parallel to that. I don't remember how long ago this app came out, but there was an application that you would run as an idle process, and it would basically turn your computer into a computer from TV and film.
That was
It would
Null
make-
Beep.
Null
That was-
Beep.
That was
Null
Null
Beep.
That was
Every
made by the
time you,
people
like-
who brought you Winamp.
Who,
which
like,
really whips the llama's
opened
ass.
an application or minimized a window or like hit enter, it would be like brr, bleep, chip, boop, boop. Like your computer would just beep all the time. It would hum, and like as the processor
Wait,
time went up, it would hum louder.
So I don't need to get a pet. I can just put that on my computer, and it'll be like having a pet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
More or less.
Yeah. Null Beep. I'm sure it still runs in like a DOS box or something. Speaking of other old stuff, who watched MacGyver?
Come on, there we go.
Another example.
Who's
again-
got their multi-tool with them?
Yes.
huh?
Right. Another example of you don't see exactly the right tools. In this case, not a turning tool, but again, the plug moved. So we kind of called this one not bad.
Cue epic music.
I like that it's labeled lock.
Be sure to label your locks so that people know that they are in fact locks.
He may have thought it was a button.
Right? You never know.
That would be funny if you had a wafer lock that was just button and it wasn't actually a lock.
It's like those
I
cabinet
can't
locks.
pick this lock. Have you tried pressing
The filing
on it?
cabinets. They
Oh,
pop
yeah,
out.
yeah.
You have to push them in and turn.
Somebody, who follows the Twitter account Batman Labels? Has anyone heard of this? There's a couple.
Come
I
on,
feel like
come
I
on.
should.
More
This
people
is
should.
All
I'm gonna
screen
do that
grabs
right
from the
now.
old Adam West Batman show that are just if you ever saw, they're just like criminal proceeds. They're like on a box just labeled criminal proceeds. It's like Joker's poison gas in like a giant tank. Like, it's nothing but those screen grabs.
Bat
Oh,
fingerprint detector.
Fingerprint, yeah. Bat detector, yeah.
Batman.
That crime computer.
So who wants to talk about this one? This was a shock to see the accuracy on this video game, right?
Oh, is this
Anybody-
the
does
one?
anyone-
The one that almost? I swear, I'm like, did he consult on this?
Well, a lot of tool people think that some amateur lockpicker, or at least a very avid devotee of locks and lockpicking, was like in contact with the development team of this Watchmen game. If you've never seen footage from this, like this is an
This is
element of the
amazing
gameplay.
3D cutaway. Somebody spent a lot of time on this, and it kind of looks like there's wear on the pins.
I don't know. Some of those pins are way too short. Like that key pin. You couldn't,
Yeah,
come on.
that's a bit of a problem. But
I'm sure
We're
we
nerdy
can
hackers. We're
find
gonna
a
find some
locksmith
reason to
who's-
not like it. I'm sure.
Yeah, and like, come
I'm
on.
sure we can
That
find a
guy's
locksmith who's
That
done
guy's
that.
turning tool was like a looped around paper clip. I don't know how much.
You can
torque
do
you're
that.
gonna
I've
get
I've done
off
that with a bobby pin.
Yeah. Like,
I've done that with a
alright,
paperclip.
It's not perfect, but come on, like it's better than a lot of. Wasn't there like lockpicking in Fallout or something? Does anybody know? Right?
Oh,
Was it?
that's
was it
the
better or
one where
worse
they
than this?
spin the bobby pin
Yep,
and use the
yep.
screwdriver, and I'm like, what kind of lock are you picking, buddy? Because I don't know how that's gonna work.
Well, speaking of tools made of bits of wire and improvised tools, this was a film from back in the 80s, a really funny, a good movie. If you
Doug
like,
now.
Yeah. This shows an actual improv snapper gun, which was before you could just order snap guns from catalogs. A lot of locksmiths and even sometimes criminals and other people in the kind of shady underworld would make their own snap guns using basically bicycle spokes, right? Mm-hmm.
And you
this-
still
yeah,
can. You
yeah.
can make this tool right now, and it will kind of sort of work because we still have locks in the U.S. that it kind of sort of works on.
it'll work about as well as it ever did.
Nice use of a turning tool.
Nice use of his mouth to hold his extra tools. I said duck.
Yeah. So there's a later scene where Preston also says he uses the same tool later to get into a building, and he says it's a great example of the pick the lock then look both ways before you like enter the room kind of trope.
You know,
But
don't-
again, like what's
don't
that?
look out before you do it.
Right.
Do something that makes it obvious that you're breaking in, then make sure the coast is clear.
But it makes us kind of smile, and maybe you see this in elements of like hacker shows when somebody has done enough research to get an obscured, even if it's an odd little thing, like that's not a fancy tool, right? But the fact that they got it right, the fact that it was legit makes it that much better. And at some point, we're even going to show you a clip from Mr. Robot, but how often do people praise Mr. Robot? Because even the small stuff, the throwaway details on the show, they're like Easter eggs for all of us because somebody cared enough to. Again, you don't have to cost a lot of time and energy in the props department, but you can amp up the reward really big for the audience when you want to.
In fact, it'll probably cost you less in the props department because real tools don't blink quite as much as most Hollywood tools.
Yeah.
Wait,
Anybody,
my lockpicks need fewer batteries?
yeah.
Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
yeah.
Anybody a fan of the great Nathan Fillion? All right. Probably
on,
probably for
come
shows
on.
that are way better than this show. Anybody watch Firefly? Right.
There we go. All right.
Anybody watch that show Drive or something when it was on for 3 episodes?
Yeah, they freaking
Dr.
canceled it mid-season. It was.
Any of my theater freakies in the room who like the Much Ado About Nothing that Joss Whedon did? Yes, there we are. All right.
How about
Nathan
Dr.
Fillion
Horrible's
is
sing-along blog?
There we go.
All right.
Well, one of his lesser efforts was Castle. And this is, again, like you have this sort of genre of this idea in a lot of TV and film of the dumb character who needs everything explained to him all the time, which takes the place of the audience. Hence, like Buck Rogers, archaic Stone Age man in the 23rd century, but you get everything fed to you. Well, that show is notable for this. Castle's this detective show where somebody on screen is always explaining everything for no reason. And even in this scene with picking, his daughter feeds it to the audience because,
One bobby pin is the torsion wrench, the other is the lockpick. Just need to be careful not to apply too much pressure. Did you just break the hairpin? Because that's the last one. No. I got it. Oh my god.
It's all right. Well,
Always carry a spare in your wallet.
Yeah,
Always.
carry spare hairpins in your hair. Who carries, like, first of all, who carries lockpicks on them in general all the time? Really, that's not a lot of
Can we
hands.
count how many sets everybody carries?
Yeah, who carries more than one set, though? Because, like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got
But
the
I
main
want to see
set,
more
the
hands in
pocket
the
set.
audience.
Exactly. You got to get some of the new tools or make your own. Take regular tools, chop them down. We'll talk to y'all about that later. But the idea, again, they showed actually using a turning tool and a improvised pick. They showed the turning of the plug. So we gave that one some pretty good props, right? That was pretty nice.
That's a solid scene for that.
Yeah. The one that a lot of people remember growing up with, though, like the classic movie that a lot of people go to for like showing lockpicking and showing intensity of it and the realism. Linda Hamilton as an actress, she was remarkable in this role. Her acting skills, where she really threw herself in. She did a lot of training. She did firearms training. She wanted to do all the gun handling. She really wanted to do everything on set. And a lot of people, I didn't even know this till you guys told me in the research for this, that she wanted to do all the lockpicking legit. Like, Cameron was going to give her just time to get it right and just keep trying and keep trying. And so when you see her struggling on set, she's really
This
like,
is her
this is her
legitimately
legit trying
doing
to get
it.
out of restraints and trying to pick a door with things she had.
Yeah, I think it was that Night Owl of Preston that had that piece of information, but they do.
Yeah,
at
this
the end, when
this
it
was
cuts.
this was Linda Hamilton actually did all of this. She insisted that they put her in real restraints and that she attempt to get out of them using skills that she picked up. And this next bit, I think, yes, this bit right here was originally supposed to be a throwaway take that was going to cost them like nothing. And she insisted that they give her the chance to actually do it on screen. I believe she did actually manage to get it open, but they stopped the take before she got the bolt.
Yeah.
What I thought
But
was really
the
good,
way
it
they
was-
cut it, still, it looks great.
It's easy to miss, but she actually takes the paperclip and bends the tip of it in the edge of the buckle. Like, she's not just unbending it and sticking it in there. She's actually fashioned, so there it is. So she
Yep.
grips the paperclip in the end there to bend the tip and then uses it, which is exactly what you would have to do if you wanted to pick open.
I have, in fact, done this myself.
All the time
in like a
on
facility of state
handcuffs.
care.
Seriously, no, if you ever have a pair of Smith & Wesson handcuffs, there's that nice little groove.
Or Peerless.
Peerless too.
Oh, yeah, the groove
but
on
that
the
nice
bow
little
that
groove
guides the
on
bow.
the pole is a great place to make an improvised tool.
Who here has ever picked their way out of handcuffs or escaped restraints? Yeah.
Okay,
They-
good.
That's good hands here. We
Somehow I'm
want
out
some
of
more
it
of those
today.
hands. Absolutely.
Some of you in the back that aren't raising your hands, come downstairs later. We'll help you out with that.
Right. So, all right, who watches Mr. Robot? Right?
There we go.
Now, what are some of the things that we love to mention about this scene?
Oh, there's a lot of.
Right?
Is this the second season?
This is,
No,
yeah,
this is
so
first.
here, let's go ahead and show it, right?
See, you looked around before, not after.
Make sure the coast is clear. Gets his tools out. Opens the door.
Crossing the road.
Now, you couldn't see everything because they were trying to keep the pace up, right? But something that Preston mentioned in an email to me, and we'll thank him again, but Preston was really instrumental along with the two
Hugely.
fellas on the end there of putting all this together.
Props goes to Skylar as well for starting
yeah.
the spreadsheet that we then took to get a lot of these clips.
Yeah, there's
Skylar
a
Town,
pretty
absolutely.
sizable sheet now of just any lockpicking featured in media that people just comment on in the tool community. It's funny. But Preston pointed out what happens when he gets to the other side of the door.
Does anyone remember this scene?
Anyone remember?
No? Come on.
He's not where he wanted to be. He's in the wrong stairwell, which is very realistic. Because like even if you pick a door open, on how many jobs have we like picked stuff open and
All
been
the
like,
time.
well, shit, this doesn't do us any good. Like, glad
are
I spent
now
4 minutes on that.
In a lower security area. We've
Yeah.
let ourselves out.
Yeah, we've let ourselves out of the building. Awesome. That helps.
Usually it's because you're the one who's like, here, let's go this way. I'm like, wait, but You're like, no.
No. This is good. This is
is
good.
right.
Follow me. Yeah, I cowboy it a lot, pretty much on all the pen test jobs, but that's my jam.
I think this is the second time you blamed D for something. And
I'm very blamable. It's if something goes wrong
There
in
are
the job,
reasons for
there are
that.
reasons. Yeah. That one company was so mad at that. Never mind. We won't talk about that. Yeah. But now something that Babak turned me onto, and then a lot of people have now seen this. Where did you originally encounter Saruroku? It wasn't the manga, right? Like you had heard of the
No,
films. and
I
the
heard
TV
of
show.
I heard of this. It's the original story is actually a manga, a graphic novel about this young locksmith that is the protagonist in the series, which was really fascinating. He's got like an HPC style hook in the cover there, and obviously like any other Japanese graphic novel storyline, there's a bunch of hijinks and things that happen, this and that. But it was so popular that they actually made a live action series and then film based off of the manga. So this is from.
This would be
Which
09,
clip is-
right? So this is the first opening clip of the first episode,
Right.
basically, where he's a locksmith. Like, that's his job. But then, as Babak points out, like, crazy mayhem ensues with him and his friends.
Right.
And this is easily one of the most fascinatingly fun, not just because they show real tools and realistic action.
It's one of the most accurate depictions of lockpicking in the show.
And it shows really fucking good filmmaking. Like, innovative way. You know how we talked about it's hard to show the lock? Like, what are you going to see, the inside of the lock? They really think about, whoever their DP was, like, really was like, hey, let's set up the camera this way. What if we did this? Like, check this out.
なるほど。ダブルディスクシリンダーか。
すいません、鍵屋さん。私ついついなく
We
しちゃ
tried
うん
to
で
get the
すよね。
subtitles. Apparently they didn't transfer
そ
over.
んな方いてこそ儲かる商売ですから。
そっか。
I wonder.
まあそりゃそうですよね。
あなたのような美しくて可愛い女性ならまた何度も忘れてまた何度も呼んでほしいですよ。
もうお世辞がお上手ね。
いや、お世辞なんかじゃないですよ。
難しいですか？
いや、
Actually,
もう
let's see here. Do I have subtitles? Nope.
So the idea of showing, like, through the keyway is kind of neat. You'll see in this next scene, later on in the show, a friend of his is, like, compromised by, he gets a text. She thinks she's got something slipped in her drink in a bar. And he's like, oh my gosh, what happened to her? He leaves what he's doing. He wants to go find, like, who is this guy that might be taking advantage of my friend? And of course, so he's a locksmith. He's going to try to save the day. But the whole show is like he never quite saves the day in the heroic way. He's always kind of, he never gets the recognition.
He's a little inept.
He's a little inept.
consistently, Yeah.
But he does open the locks. And again, the way they show it is not just advancing the action, but really showing you mechanisms and fun details.
They got the right music.
Even the keyway turning.
he didn't forget his tools.
So the bedroom where he thinks she's being, like, taken advantage of.
There's a number of plot points throughout the various storylines that they write that involve him going through like progressively harder and harder and harder locks.
遅えよ猿
And the girl he knows, his best friend, she's like the super badass though. So
Yeah,
she just, punches the guy in the face repeatedly and tells him tells him off. But like we love I think that was wonderful. The idea of showing, like you saw the keyway actually turn with that mask they had put over the camera, and it's really fun. If you want to include fun details, it's not hard to really show your audience and to show your viewers really innovative details and really cool, like tiny little points that make people be like, oh shit! Like, I love that the props department did that. I love that the authors of this piece didn't just want to make him a locksmith for the point of showing his like, oh, it's like any hacker, right? The hacker's like kind of weird but competent. But like it's a very two-dimensional character in most hacker like supporting roles. This is a very fleshed out person, and the tech details they wanted to show were really, really neat. Anybody else on have you guys watched any of the series besides Babak?
I've not had a chance to yet.
I unfortunately have not.
Who here would watch the series? Well, I think you've got them
It's-
all. We can put them on a
it's-
flash drive or
it's-
something.
It's not a.
You
it's
can
not a
trust the
super-
flash drive. We'll hand you right now from stage.
It's not a super great storyline, but it's the kind of thing you can put on the background and get actual work done.
Yeah, so those were certain examples. Again, we were made aware because you can only rant about so much stuff that, oh, this was wrong in the film. If only they had called up, because Tool, we're always like, you could contact us with any lockpicking questions. We'd love to provide knowledge and wisdom. Remember, as filmmakers have tried to tell us, stuff like this is decided long before any suggestions that we might have could be useful. It's nice if the props department could try to gimmick something up, but if it's not on the shot list, there's no way that somebody in the props department can make that into production. So we understand there's challenges in making things realistic in film. It's really that's happening at the script level. Unless somebody who's the filmmaker wants this to be in, these kind of details will never show up. But just follow the rule of write what you know. If you do any film work, if you do any kind of artistic, production pieces, write about what you know, and if you're interested enough in lockpicking or hacking or anything else, any subculture, there's always fanatical people out there that will answer your emails and ask questions about what you don't know. You may be able to actually include some really cool details. Am I missing anything of those key points? What do you think? Is there anything else you would give advice to? Because how many people know the artist community and have ever been involved in film production of any kind? This is New York. A lot of you may have been an extra in somebody's B movie that never went anywhere, right?
It's really just like everything else. It's a time and resources trade-off. So if that is central to the plot, then they may spend more time on it. If not, they're gonna do what they know, and it's really not worth the time in some cases to send somebody to go figure out who to write a letter to. So if you know somebody in that area, then maybe you just introduce them to it. This is what a lockpick is. This is how it's done for the basic stuff, and then maybe they'll think about that for their next script.
Yeah. So as with most of our talks about locks and lock material, the main thing, who was here yesterday when we did the road show and people were coming up? Right. Who had fun with that? So we want to, this is not nearly an exhaustive list. We want to show a clip on Bobik's machine, and then anybody who has really good thoughts about lockpicking they have seen on film or screen or anything, we want to hear from you with the microphone. We want to hear, and probably other people will recognize what you're talking about. Ask us about other bits of lockpicking you've seen. Ask us about tools you may have seen in any films that you don't know if they were real or not.
So
we want to know what you've seen and what you want to know more about. But you have another Sauru lock coming up?
Yeah, and some stuff from video games.
So while you're
sweet.
setting that up, one of Preston's favorite scenes actually is Robert Downey Jr. in the movie U.S. Marshals, where he's in the handcuffs.
Oh, yeah.
And he grabs the sunglasses off the guy who plays Cypher from The Matrix, I think.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
he just fucking breaks them, and then all of a sudden turns around and does something and shoves the
He shoves the
he
handcuffs.
shoves the stems of the sunglasses into the handcuffs to shim them and open them, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's one of those scenes where it's that could work if it was thin enough, and it was really cool the way just they choreographed that.
It does work. It's just very particular to classes. I've done
Right.
it before.
Sean, Dark Sim has done it before. Ray, you've done it before? Yeah.
Oops.
Look
Is
at
the
you.
microphone?
There you go.
Yeah, actually, a company in Germany for film Mythbuster style asked me to verify that very scene for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we did it with Hyatt Thompson handcuffs and actual sunglasses, and
Oh,
it
wow.
perfectly worked. And we did exactly what you mentioned, bending the tool in the handcuff.
There you
Okay,
go.
so you
Yeah, yeah.
actually manipulated the pawl
Yeah,
instead of shimming.
Yeah, because in the film also there's a scene where the main actor frees himself,
Yeah.
and he picks through the lock.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes,
Picks
both
through the
Wesley
lock.
Snipes and
So that
Robert Downey
Wesley
Jr.
Snipes does
use
it
that
through the
trick.
lock.
It's
So
actually
you
a bit of a
take the
plot point.
glasses, bend them in the lock of the handcuffs, and pick it. It really works.
That's awesome. Very cool.
It also shows up in the TV show Burn Notice.
Yes.
Oh, that's
less
right.
plausibly, he then tries to use another piece of the sunglasses to pick a pin tumbler lock, but
Oh, yeah. You're just a guy with some busted sunglasses. No one will suspect anything. Except
I'm
you're standing in a
Michael
place you shouldn't
Weston.
be, shoving shit in locks.
I'm Michael
so
Weston.
we're
with
gonna
all
we're
the
gonna just
skills in the
flip through a
world.
couple of various clips here. The first one is from a video game that I never really played a whole lot of. but Skyrim. Anyone play Skyrim?
Science,
So,
there we go. Oh, damn it.
so this guy's narrating. It's just a YouTube clip that I grabbed, but
There's a click now.
Yes.
There
You can
are
listen to this
these
guy try to
clicks that
play
go
and pick
around
this
as
lock.
you move your lockpick, and that's not what we're looking for.
and so,
you're just gonna
it's
want
almost
to
like
start
reverse picking because he's
slowly
moving what
moving your
looks like a turning
lockpick.
tool, possibly.
And I'll be quiet.
And
And
Well, more
his,
importantly, he's doing this
jailhouse-
to a lever lock.
His
Yeah,
jailhouse
it's not-
Shiv is acting as the turning.
Okay, didn't find anything the first time. Let's try again.
so apparently in this game, the way it works is you have an analog stick of some kind, and you have to like move the pick slowly into a certain area. And when you feel like it vibrating, then you like hold it there. And if you didn't do it too fast and the pick doesn't break or something, then the lock opens.
It's not entirely dissimilar from Fallout, I believe.
Right there. Did you guys hear that?
No, we heard heavy breathing because it's a YouTube.
No one heard it.
Play it again.
So then there is, we'll flip to the opening scene that you folks saw earlier, but without subtitles. So this will have.
Oh, so you can see what
subtitles.
actually happens. Yeah.
すいません鍵屋さん
Oh,
私
they can't read it.
つい
It's
つい
way
なんか
too low.
Nope, hold on. We can fix this.
You're just gonna bring your screen up. There you go.
There we go. Can everyone see the subtitles?
There you go.
I'll move it up a little bit. Hold on. How's that? Is that
Yay.
better? Yep.
ありがとうございますそんな方いてこそ儲かる商売ですから
そっかまあそりゃそうですよね
あなたのような美しくて可愛い女性なんかまた何度も忘れてまた何度も呼んでほしいです
もうお世辞がお上手ね
いやお世辞なんかじゃないですよ
難しいね
So the funny part here is that she hired him to come over, and she's so silly. She locked her keys out. She needs to get in. Oh, she's so thankful.
ですか
いやもう開きますよこれおいちょがりよかったですねご一緒にお茶にでもなんて言わないでくださいねあなたに誘われたらつい次の仕事があるっていうのにこのついつい行っちゃうってその
何鍵変えてんだよ勝手に引っ越そうとしてんじゃねえぞ何がいけないんだよ僕の髪がやってたんだろ金だけだ
So like when someone, just remember, when someone comes up to you, it's like, oh, hey, can you help me into my locked apartment? You could be walking into something like this.
Yeah.
Duck.
Always duck.
So we have at least one person at the mic, which, by the way, asking a question, good or bad, as long as it's brief enough, does entitle you to whiskey. So we should see more people with movie questions. What is yours, sir? Lead it off. Rock it.
So it's not actually a lockpicking scene, but there's a half-season-long arc in Prison Break where he has to make an Allen wrench out of a screw that he pulls out of a bench, and it's just like a really interesting example of like making an improvised tool to open a secured area.
That's right. I remember this first season of Did you watch Prison Break? Was that why I saw some of it?
I did, but then I stopped. Just like, it's too many shows. I can't live my
Yeah.
whole life watching series after series.
It is now. If you've never seen it, and somebody out there, you guys know how to Google, right? There were a couple of activists,
That's
I
a
want to
hacking
say,
tool that I heard
in
about.
Argentina, who were imprisoned for pamphleting during the regime, the dictatorship down there, and their story of how they broke out of prison over time, making keys out of wood, impressioning keys, copying keys, was documented and done in sort of one of those recreation documentaries, and it is fucking incredible. The way they used a broom handle to reach outside their cell and like could just the linkage they made. It's amazing. If you can Google it and you can find it, I know it's online.
Yes, we have.
We, I believe, have all heard that many
Mm-hmm.
times.
One time I was interviewed for like a written article, and I wrote up this whole thing, and they were like, "Wow, that's way too scary. We're not gonna run that." I was like, "Thanks, great, good job, thanks,
I mean,
boys."
once you point them to the tool website, you're pointing them to a manual on how to pick locks. So if you mention that in any sort of article, you're basically pointing them to the instructions,
Yeah.
even if you're not printing it.
So not strictly lockpicking, but a movie worth mentioning is the score for safe cracking,
Yeah.
safe busting, I
Yes.
should say. So fantastic.
Who saw?
acting.
There was that was De Niro and Brando in one of his last
Yeah,
roles.
and
Yes, I
Norton.
believe it's
And
very
Norton.
last.
And Norton, yeah.
So
And
the
it-
gentleman's referring to the score, and there is a safe busting scene, which in fact Mythbusters, I think, tried to replicate and showed you could. The idea of filling a safe with liquid, usually water they use in the movie, and then putting off an explosive charge to shockwave the doors off. With ostensibly, like, if you had an air-filled safe and you just blew like, you would destroy everything in the safe. But liquid, you know, would shockwave out and you wouldn't actually destroy all the contents. So
I think the plot point there was they were trying to recover some paper or something.
Yeah.
So.
No, I thought it was a gold
that
object.
staff, right?
It was a staff that was hidden in
Yeah.
a piano light.
But speaking of
been
safe
a while.
opening,
I saw it a year ago.
Bernie S. pointed me to an old James Caan movie, Thief. And we actually have, and if we get a little more time, we'll show a couple of clips from Thief, which was meticulously researched. Crazy safe opening, destructive safe opening, so it's not quite in our wheelhouse, but very accurate. And if we have a little bit of time later, we'll show you some of those clips that I
We're going to
cropped
switch
out.
to one clip, and then we're going to switch to a question again. Back
How about you
and
show
forth,
that
if that's
clip
okay.
and then
After?
instead of me talking?
Would you like to sit? Okay.
Show the clip.
Oh, show the clip? Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to flip back. There we go. Thank you very much, sir. And so this is, again, another series I didn't really watch a lot of. This is an episode of Bleach. Anyone here ever watch Bleach? I don't know if there's any anime people in here or not. But what I particularly enjoyed about it is how they represented the process of deciding to pick a lock.
ドアごと壊そうってのが仕方ない。じゃあ僕が。
I wish that's what happened when I took out my lockpicks.
おい、それってまずいんじゃないのか。他に方法がないだろう。ドアごと壊すよりマシかな。それより道から見えないようにしててくれないか。石田、お前そういう細かいことをやらせると抜群な。人聞きの悪いことを言うな。
So that's it. I just really enjoyed like how I can't easily rewind it to the frame that I wanted, but just the whole process of this whirlwind and I have this pick and I'm gonna bend it and then something not as exciting is gonna happen.
I mean, I thought that's what happened when you took out your lockpicks.
Yep.
Just Bobak.
Yeah, it's only him.
Please, sir, go ahead.
So, sir, whatever. So, one style of lockpicking that is my particular pet peeve in movies is not actually about mechanical locks. Is people punching and trying to pick combination locks. The
Electronic locks.
archetypal one being Matthew Broderick trying to break out of his jail cell where he's being detained in the base by recording the DTMF tones that are coming
Right.
out of the touchpad, which is just things don't work like that.
A lot more easier if your locking system is controlled by a telephone. That would actually potentially work.
Whatever.
So there are systems that work that way.
Like apartment buildings.
Yeah,
where you
there
can
are
buzz
apartment
someone in.
buildings that work kind of similarly to that. And although it's not exactly that, it does remind me of several hotel safes that I've seen where when you lock it, each button that you press makes a different tone. So conceivably, if you're outside of someone's room when they lock their safe, you could listen in to what keys they're pressing and just decode the pin that way. So as silly as it sounds, the idea that a security device that uses a pin having different tones for each number is not unheard of. We've seen it a
Really?
multitude of different times, absolutely.
I mean,
It's not entirely ludicrous,
I've-
just a little bit.
I'm familiar with in Parisian buildings especially, they have the 3x4 touchpad, but it does not make DTMF tones. Just
Right.
Just
Right.
beep,
Yeah.
beep, beep.
anyway, well, good to know. Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you.
whiskey.
Thank you. And yeah.
I wonder if anyone staying here has found
Do I have to
the
drink the
secret
whole
tubular
No.
lock that is the override lock on the in-room safes.
Yeah, I don't want to bring that.
It's there. It's hidden.
Oh, you got it.
Yes, it's usually under a cap. It is under a cap on these safes. Don't fuck with your in-room safe. No matter how ridiculously easy the tubular lock is to pick. I'm sure.
Well, just remember the first rule: don't pick locks you don't own.
Right. No, Bobak and I own a lot of models of in-room safe now. Yeah.
They're not fun to travel with, let me tell you.
Especially if you accidentally
No,
stay in somewhere that
You
uses the
try to
same
check
model.
out of your hotel with a bunch of them on a bell cart. You get some strange looks. Yes, sir.
We got another question.
I actually have two questions, if that's okay. One of them is pretty
Please.
short. So,
Yeah.
Is being a locksmith kind of like being a wizard, where your skills are directly proportional to the amount of facial hair you have?
Come on up, take one. And if you're here at 11 in this same room, you can ask that question again.
That's right. Yeah, very, very bearded panel. Who's coming to the TSA Keys talk at 11 p.m.? Oh, you should
Come on,
all
I want
stay
to hear
up for
some
that.
more.
Try that again. Who's coming to TSA Keys at 11?
There we go. That's more like it.
So I've actually used my beard to hold my lockpicks when I need.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a couple too many. I can just stick a couple in there when I need them. Swap them out.
So real question, back to Prison Break. I like the first couple seasons of the show, and the thing that I remember, they had to make a copy of a key, and so they caused a distraction on one of the guards, and somebody made an impression of this key in a bar of soap, and then they melted the plastic handle of a comb into the impression, and they were able to open like a 4 or 5 pin lock with that. Is that realistic? Is that something that can actually be done, or is that just fiction made for TV?
I think that we might call that
for impressioning a lot.
feasible, but not super plausible.
I would probably pick different materials because I think that soap is going to melt at much lower temperature than the plastic.
I don't know if you're dripping plastic in, that. You know what? This is the kind of thing I now want to try down in the village.
All right, somebody bring a bar of soap, somebody bring fire, and somebody bring some plastic.
So the idea
this is gonna
of
go well.
A cheap
cast and mold
toothbrush.
attacks are real. There are absolutely kits that you can do that with various kinds of soft mediums and metals, usually metals with a very low melting point, like a woods metal or some sort of alloy that has
lead. Don't like that.
Yeah, you don't want to use lead.
Yeah, no.
But yeah,
this actually was something I was just asking Dave if we had any stills or clips of this. The old Donald Sutherland Great Train Robbery film,
yeah,
where they
great
do
film.
this casting attack. Fantastic film, and they really go into detail with the whole process of it.
And that was so old. You're seeing chub locks, and one of the
Yes.
back in the day, and this was, which was based off of a real story, the real incident, right?
Yeah.
In fact, they only later got caught because Robert Agar, they were supposed to pay off his mistress, and then he was in prison for another crime, and they stopped giving his mistress any money, so he ratted them out. But yeah, the idea back then, you didn't have bismuth alloy metals and things, so you would just make a wax cast of a key, and then a man like him, a safecracker, a screwsman as you would be known, would be able to use that to basically visually guide themselves to carving the key, to making a key. And what a magnificent couple of scenes in that movie, showing conventional picking, sort of that impressioning key attack. It was a very, very entertaining picture if you like early Sean Connery work.
Well, something to consider as well is that the further back you go, the tolerances weren't quite as tight either. So the idea that you could use more cruder methods to achieve such result is more believable as well.
But yeah, now I would totally want to melt a toothbrush. Absolutely.
Right.
Another question.
Yeah, grab a drink and questions, yes.
Yeah, hi there. So first of all, thank you guys for showing up for this conference, because this is my first Hope, and yesterday I learned how to pick a lock, so that was pretty cool.
Woo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
All right, open.
And first question, I have two, is have you guys ever seen a movie or a TV show or anything like that where there's a scene where somebody attempts to pick a lock and fails?
Yes, there's a couple of different ways I've seen that. One of my favorite is actually one that I've seen, is one trope that I've actually seen more and more often. The new Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films, as well as a Canadian detective series called Murdoch Mysteries. If you have, you may also have seen it under the name The Artful Detective, apparently in the U.S. And there the failure is the main character, who's usually a very skilled, brilliant person, pulls out a whole set of complex tools, and they're going to pick this lock, and they just get started on it, and their partner gets impatient, just kicks the door in. There have been a few others where, and unfortunately I cannot recall off the top of my head which particular series or films I've seen it in, but where they break their tool off or something interrupts them.
So there is actually a clip that is relevant slightly.
And they run.
So we can
Good
switch
shot.
back to
Oh,
the
yes,
video
yes.
feed for, from the same show. It's not that I really like the show a whole lot. It's okay enough. It's that when an entire show is about a locksmith protagonist, you get a lot of clips out of it. So.
Oh, that's a good freeze frame right there.
Yeah, his sidekick is a interesting fellow here. So I don't even remember the details of the backstory of this particular episode, but there is some organized crime syndicate or gang or bad guys that are trying to break into the house. There's something in some secret safe that Saru, the main guy, is trying to get into, and he has some difficulties.
サル、やばいやばい。社長あと5分ぐらいで来るってよ。急いで。
はいよ。
Can we sell pics like that? Those will definitely stay in my beard.
I think Peterson Tools makes those.
I don't know, that might be a John Fall.
I don't see any gator on it. It can't be Peterson.
一丁上がり。
Hopefully this is the clip I'm thinking of.
Wah, wah, wah. Why is there always some woman standing over him?
Is she distracting the guy?
Yeah, she's distracting the mob boss guy or gang person.
I'm actually really curious who did the soundtrack to this now.
I don't know.
It's starting to sound like Archer.
Well, yeah, I'm hearing a bit of Archer, a bit of Cowboy Bebop, and I think earlier we had some bits from Hackers.
What's the hotkey to speed up VLC?
I don't know. But speaking of...
Anyway, he doesn't get into the second safe. He has to, later on, he has to like make a new special kind of pick, and then he comes back and then gets in. But yeah, it does happen, but it depends on the story that the filmmakers or producers is trying to show or tell.
All right.
Cool, thanks. And the other question I had was related to like digital locks, things like pin pads and hotel room key things. You guys ever play around with any of those?
Yeah.
Any
Not as
successes?
tool members, but a couple of us might run a pen testing firm that does things. that are
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean, those are oftentimes not as difficult as you would hope it would be. And to anyone who is interested in that, the best thing I can recommend, just like with anything else, any other type of hacking that you want to learn or play with, is just decide that's what you want to do and get a couple samples of whatever the thing is that you're interested in, and you can be creative about how you do that. So if there's a brand of safe that you like, then you can start looking at used ads or this or that, or you can call the manufacturer and see if they're if you can.
You said buy 4 yesterday, right?
What's that?
You said buy 4 yesterday of what you want to work
yeah,
on.
you buy 4 of everything. So there's ways to buy hospitality safes and all sorts of other stuff, and just take it apart and look for interesting things. I mean, as vague as that is, that's really all it takes, because you'll just start looking at different designs and you'll go, well, no, it wouldn't be that simple, would it?
I like when he found the master override code of a certain model hospitality safe.
Oh yeah, we were at a conference at a very large property down in Florida, an extremely large property down in Florida.
Who owns that much property in Florida?
And it just happened to be a very simple design where the microcontroller didn't store the safe master code on chip. It stored it in like a little EEPROM chip. So you just hook up, logic analyzer and put in some incorrect opening attempts and look for the times that it reads the code from the double EEPROM. And we found a master code. It was comparing the pin number to not only the code that I set, but also some other code that we had not set. And we found a 6-digit master code that opened the safes for the entire property. And what was even more interesting is I called the manufacturer afterwards and said, hey, you know, I just bought one of these safes.
Yeah. I'm a hotel owner. I bought a few of these.
We have the master code. We want to change it. How do we change the master code? They're going, oh, there's no master code in those safes. We're like, that's weird because there's this code that they gave us.
Yeah, so the slip of paper.
That it works
6
all the
digits, it works
time,
all
but
the
we
time.
don't know how to change it. And they're like, what's the code?
We'd like to know so we can help people.
And I gave them the code. They're like, and their response, they didn't even respond to that directly. They just said, oh, well, you'll have to send us the safe and give us a copy of the purchase receipt for the safe, and then we'll change the code for you. So no acknowledgement whatsoever that, hey, maybe this thing actually does exist. We were kidding, JK.
You didn't find the master code.
There is no master code.
Does that answer?
That's it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Right
you.
on.
Thank you. And
One more
We got
question?
only a few minutes. We're going to try to hustle through
Yep.
whoever's left at the mic.
there you go.
Please.
I've seen a bunch of documentary movies about like life in prison. I know there's a bunch of fly-on-the-wall TV shows about jail right now. Have you ever seen, do you know of any instances of a key profile being revealed in footage of those?
I can't say any of those like fly-on-the-wall documentary style ones. I have heard of at least a few instances where people have escaped from prison by getting a good look at the keys hanging off a guard's belt, and
Actually,
then
there was a prison that put the master key to the prison on the book.
yes,
The
that was a
profile
very
of
recent
it,
one.
and somebody just
Someone literally
one
put
out.
the profile of the master key on the
Inmate's
prisoner,
handbook.
on the inmate orientation guide, on the cover of the orientation guide for the inmates.
But really, we've seen some of the Folger Adams locks, and those keys are huge.
Yes,
Like, you're not gonna
detention
hide one of
locks
those
are-
anywhere intentionally.
Detention locks are really
That's
kind
a
of
lot
an
of
odd
toilet
breed.
paper mache.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not any place you would think about hiding it from inspection. It ain't gonna go there.
But there are actually a number of prisons, and this used to be a thing in the Victorian period, where they have adopted either special wallets or covers on the guard's belt to hold the keys, or keys with an integral cover that folds over it. when
What's
it's not in
important
use.
to keep in mind is that remember with any lock system, it is a system of components, and it's not just the lock cylinders. So oftentimes in prisons, when inmates do escape through manipulation of the lock mechanism, they're actually not picking the lock, but rather interacting with or preventing some other mechanism that locks the door. Oftentimes the doors are so poorly maintained that they're able to figure out other creative ways of jimmying doors open that don't necessarily have anything to do with picking the actual lock itself, more like bypassing it.
So I think we have just a couple minutes left, so I think we have at
We
least
got
one
two
more
people,
question.
we can get them.
All
We can
right.
serve
All
these
right.
two people drinks.
Maybe someone else should go. This is nothing to do with locks, but it has to do with inaccuracy.
Sure.
Okay, I'm a
We'll do our best.
musician.
Okay.
I'm a saxophone player, and I'm actually was on a show of Gotham on Fox.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a scene with a band playing in a nightclub, and I
Okay.
forget the star's name, but she was singing. And they come in, they say they want the people that play the same instrument so it looks more realistic. That's the idea. So I come in there. I did it once before, and saxophone was fine. This time they come in and they play the track. It's a trumpet. I'm holding it, and they supply all this. And I said, "That's not a sax. That's a trumpet." And they got a trumpet, but the trumpet. This is something maybe not everybody knows this because it's another minutia thing for people in that field. Had a Harman mute in it. It's a metallic mute. Has a very different like those Miles
Sure.
Davis
Yeah.
records and that kind
Yeah,
of
I
thing.
mean,
in the
and
50s.
that can be both surprising and not surprising
Right.
at the same time. Like to you, it was like, come on,
Yeah.
you guys are idiots.
So
but-
I didn't have a mute, so I had an open trumpet, and they got that Harman mute sound. So people that understand this would think that's hilarious. And I was featured quite a bit, playing obligato to the singer who was a star. I don't remember her name. And it's like
All right.
That's
camera
great.
Well,
panning.
grab a drink. If gentlemen
Mooney.
behind you can ask a question in 10 seconds or less, can you do it, sir? Oh, wow. You just jumped in front of the poor guy who's been standing up all day.
No, I was waiting.
Up
and
to
then
you.
All right.
listener.
10 seconds. You got it.
Go.
I have worked in production on TV, been a consultant for something like this, and similar to that, sometimes you know what you have to do, but you know that they have no interest in reality. So my recipe involved a balaclava, 3 laptops, blue LEDs, and fingerless gloves. So.
There you go.
Just
If-
to make sure,
If
if
they
you
won't-
leave your fingerprints everywhere, thank you.
If they won't listen to you, make them look ridiculous. If you have more questions, I think.
How fast
You
can
can
you
st-
talk?
how fast can you talk?
In jurisdictions where
Way too
burglary
long
tools
already.
are felonious,
Go on.
like, maybe
Yeah.
here,
Felonious,
have
right.
you guys come across any stealth kits in art, concept art, media, things that maybe you've come across as actual viable products that aren't immediately apparent as like
Pick tools are
lockpicks?
not actually illegal in virtually any state in the union, including the 4 states of Mississippi, Virginia, Ohio, and Nevada, where you think they're illegal, but they're not. Tennessee's the only state of concern. No, we're not aware of any covert tools, except tools that you might have improvised to look like they're not tools. Ask us downstairs in the village about that. Take your whiskey. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the panel.
Thank you guys for your time. I was watching yesterday, I was watching today.